You should
to
cancel the meeting and I'll go to.
call
Yeah,
this
let's do
meeting
that.
to order and document the time at 6:32. And if you would rise, do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to our January 8th edition, first of 14. And as you review the agenda for tonight, any adjustments, any adds? We do have
fund balance?
Yeah, we do have one item that we do have to add, and that is adding the, apparently we had not taken a vote yet on moving the reserve, the fund balance to the reserve account from FY12. So we'll put that in under section 5 here. So we'll add that at that point. Any others? All right. So with that, Sean, we'll turn it to you for the focus on learning.
Okay. So a little different this month in that, fortunately, we don't have a bunch of students here for you. It's just going to be me. But it is important that the adults continue to learn as well. We know that one of the biggest school level factors in terms of impact on student learning is leadership. It's usually in the top 5 if you look at all the different research that's about school level factors. Time and opportunity to learn, high expectations and monitoring the learning of students, parent involvement, school climate, and then in those top 5, leadership is in the mix always. So one of my goals this year has been to build a really collaborative and reflective leadership team. And so what we started with was this book by Raff and Conchi called Strength-Based Leadership. And it's really combines the research on leadership and strengths and puts them together. And in the book, what it really describes is 3 keys of effective leadership. And those keys are that effective leaders really invest and they focus on strengths. That they surround themselves with the right people, and then they maximize those teams and the strengths within those individual members of the teams. And then they understand the needs of the people that within the organization or the followers within the organization. So it talks about those. It gives 4 case studies within the book. It talks about leaders within different sectors, such as a leader within the Ritz-Carlton, Best Buy, Wendy Kopp from Teach for America. And it looks at the research on strengths and leadership and breaks leadership into 4 domains and then breaks the strengths within those domains into a bunch of themes. And those 4 domains are called executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. And I will show you an example. So you do a survey. It takes 30, 40 minutes, a bunch of questions, and then based on the themes, the domains, and all the research behind that, it gives you your top 5 themes within those 4 domains in terms of your strengths. So what we did as a team, every member of the leadership team, we read the first part of the book before school started. We did the survey, and then once we got the doors open and got school going, everybody took some time. They read their individual reports on their strengths, and then everybody had 20 to 30 minutes at a leadership meeting during the week to talk about what their strengths were, and then they got about a 20-page report that gave a lot of detail on their strengths. And so they talked about whether or not they thought that those were accurate in terms of who they are as a leader, or whether there was some discrepancies in there. And so that was really important because it gave a chance for every member of the team, and me being a new leader within the team, Kate being new to the team, Leon being relatively new, it gave us a real opportunity to share who we are as leaders with each other. And so we did that in the first couple of months, and then I had everybody do, just before the holiday break here, the winter break, I had everybody do a creative representation of their strengths. And so it was really fascinating what people came up with, and that was it. People kind of scrambled, they said, whoa, what am I supposed to do? You know, sometimes makes people a little uncomfortable going out into that creative realm a bit. And we had everything from animated videos to a Mod Podge tray that had magnets on it with each one of this person's strengths. And then I used some photographs to demonstrate my strengths. And all of this discussion within the research, within ourselves as leaders, is building that reflective and that collaborative team as we move forward. So, the other document that we are using, that we created out of this, was, if you look down, the left-hand side has all of those themes of different strengths. And then we took each member of leadership in our top 5 and looked where we were clustered, so where we share strengths, and then also who has a particular strength that somebody else doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we've discussed is, okay, so if I'm encountering some sort of an issue, who in the team has a strength that I think is related to that I can go to and get some counsel from and collaborate. So, and it's always nice to be able to have a team so you can go and say, hey, I'm having a problem with this, can you help me think about it? But now you can go and you can say, this is the issue that I'm encountering. This is somebody in the team that has a strength around that. Now I can go specifically to that person. And people have talked about that in the last couple of months about how they've actually used that to really have a targeted collaboration around something they're dealing with. So our next steps are people have read the case studies within the book. We're going to study those a little bit in more depth. And then we're talking about how to potentially bring this to the staff. That we want the staff to do this inventory and to have some similar discussions that we've had, because we found it really useful so far this year. So in the end, adult learning is a huge, huge component of impacting student growth. And so we have to continue to cultivate as leaders our own space to learn and then to take that out to others. And it's a great model of leadership to be able to do that. And people notice it too. People have said, we see that there's a difference this year in the way that you guys are working together and the way that you're working with us from the staff. So that's helpful. Questions?
Do you expect that kind of strength-based focus will trickle down into teaching and pedagogy eventually?
Absolutely.
And what would that look like? How would that be different than?
I think the biggest impact that I hope that it would have would be on school climate.
Mm-hmm.
So when members of leadership are confronted with the day-to-day issues or even the bigger issues, how are we dealing with them? Are we dealing with them with oh crap, I can't believe this happened again, or are we saying, what's the opportunity here that's come up? And teachers deal with that every moment in their classrooms. You can kind of go, the kid's not getting it. I've tried and I've tried and he's not getting it. Or you can say, how is this kid thinking about this? Or tell me about your thinking. So I think that piece would be really important and could be I hope would be an impact at the classroom level.
Yeah. How are you going to roll it out to staff then?
I don't know, we haven't gotten that far. Some people got really excited about it even when we just started it, and they said, we should do this with staff. And then we said, let's do this ourselves.
Yeah.
So that we can get smart about it, have our own experience together in a group, and then figure out how do you do this. And maybe it's not with everybody, maybe it's with leadership teams, where there's a middle high school leadership team, or maybe it's a summer reading assignment. And, so looking at different ways to do that.
Cool.
What about the trickle down to the students, of having them know about their own strengths and their own leadership capacities and building that?
Yes.
Well, even with the individualized learning and
Right, it kind of
plans and
segues into
everything
students
else.
that are
right?
needing to know
Yep.
who you are as a learner, and watching it happen too.
Yes.
You know, like that transparency of seeing how, getting to see modeling
Mhm.
of strength-based interactions and habits.
Right. Yeah, and I think that is, I mean, it's one of the implementation teams, youth leadership
Yeah.
engagement. And I think it is something that we need to work on and try to increase that student involvement and student voice in our school.
Did you find I've done several of these asset inventories over the years. Did you find it to be pretty accurate? People acknowledging
We did.
for themselves that it seemed
Yeah.
to be accurate?
Yep. Yeah, people did. And, you know, when you look at the detail that they give you, some of it is quite specific, some of it's more general. So there was a part of me that felt, you know, it's kind of like reading your astrology
Horoscope?
sign
Yeah.
or your horoscope, you know, and you kind of go, oh, wait a minute, that's general enough, it could apply to. But for the most part, you're kind of reading and you're going, wow, oh yeah, that's true. You know, when I'm reading about myself, the one that I showed you, in the executing in terms of belief and achiever, I just felt like completely hit home with me, you know, and really on a kind of an emotional level of how I feel about my work and things that I do. You know, like I have really strong values and I try to draw from those, and I always feel a need to achieve, to get something done in a quality way. So yeah, I'd say overall, everybody felt like they were very accurate.
The gut level reaction is toward your strengths always. The hard part with these is understanding your weakness and trying to work on it. Or at least keeping that posted somewhere so you understand
Right.
who to go to
Yeah.
9 months from now.
Well,
You know,
one of the
a year
interesting
from
things in the
now.
very beginning of the book is it has you really reflect on, after you've done the survey and you've kind of identified your strengths, is how much time do you actually spend in a day operating within your strengths?
Yeah.
Living your strengths. Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, research tells you that people are operating, you know, it's like 10 to 15% within their strengths. Because we just don't think about it that way, we just do, you know, what's in front of us, instead of thinking about how we do it within our strengths.
Those have been fun to see along the lines too, like the ones that are checked off across the lines, you know, and then, you know, scattered about too, which is.
It was, you know, and it wasn't surprising that, I think the one below there that you can't really see is probably learner.
Oh, right.
They had a whole bunch of educators, they're, one of their top 5 themes
Yeah.
is learner.
And
But
no one's
one-
across discipline, which probably isn't true.
Yeah.
You want to do another thing, yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
And, but the one that I was really struck by was the individualization, which speaks to where we want to go with student-centered learning, and the fact that that's a strength for many people within the team. And when you read about individualization, it's strikingly parallel to student-centered learning and starting with an individual and building from who they are.
Any one task you took out of the list that's missing in general from the group that needs to be, I mean, did anything kind of pop out that was missing across the group?
No
Usually as you get into
harmonizers.
7, 8 people, you,
Well,
Harmony's
the other thing
tricky.
you have to remember is that it's
Right.
really identifying your top 5.
Okay.
So it doesn't
Yeah.
mean that you don't have some of the other strengths. It doesn't give you the information.
Stand out.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So we didn't spend time doing that.
Nobody's too focused, looks like.
How many could you pick?
What'd you say? I was.
No, what'd you pick?
listening.
What?
Okay.
That's great.
No, that's great, man, that's it.
Yeah, I think it's important to take the time out though and not only make sure that the staff is getting the development, but the leadership team as well.
Because it's where we're headed, that's what our ends are. You know, what we want our kids to walk away from is, and to be able to be in a system where this type of thinking and practice is embedded, only continues to support what we want from them.
Yeah.
Right, that's why I like your question about getting it down into the kids eventually
Yeah.
after, the staff has gotten.
Because kids
through
are
it.
such great BS detectors, and we say,
Mm.
do these things, and we're all like,
She knows.
but you're not doing them. They're always calling it, which is great. So it's nice to see that it's actually being role modeled and
Mhm.
practiced.
And the connection, the biggest connection that I was making through a lot of it was to Carol Dweck's work on mindset.
Mhm.
Um,
It's a huge connection.
Yeah. Which is
Yeah.
really important just about and it all ties in mindfulness, how do we think about who we are and how we are
And social thinking, how do we
and how
interact?
others are.
Yeah.
Before we move into the next piece, I just wanted to note that Winooski resident Jody Harrington completed this project of a map and history of Winooski. If you open it wide open, there's a nice map with some great places to go visit in downtown Winooski, and this will be distributed across the city. We got a batch of them today that we'll share across the school, and they'll be downtown in some areas. She's talking to the Chamber of Commerce's about getting them into all those pamphlet walls all over, so people coming to visit will come and check us out. And we'll have an intentional way of doing it.
I can't believe that Baptist church was built in 1877. Oh my goodness.
I
This
just
is
have one more
fabulous.
question about the leadership thing. Is that applicable to us as a board at all?
I think you always wanna know your.
And if it is, is that something that we should do as a learning opportunity for us?
It'd be fun.
They're talking leadership, and we're supposed to be the leaders of the entire school
So
district.
do we want to read the
The
book
other-
and have a,
Yeah, I'll toss it
Book
out there.
discussion?
However,
That's a
however
great
you guys
idea.
want to do it, but
I'm fine with that.
I don't see ever a problem in understanding not only yourself, but others
Yeah.
that you work with. And again, to find their strengths, so you lean into that. I don't see that as any
so the
issue.
superintendent's going to get us 5 copies of the book, I guess, and we're going to read it.
We're gonna get our own. We run the budget. I'm just kidding. Buy your own book after last time.
Amazon.com.
Yeah,
That would be
so
great.
Yeah, if you as a board
guys-
decided you wanted to, yeah. be great.
The survey is online, or?
It is. You
it?
get
Okay.
a,
That's-
you get a nice little code. In the book, it's a page, you scratch it off, you type in the code, do it online, and then, you log in and it gives you all the reports like that.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right. Sounds
Alright.
like a
Do it.
good plan.
Done.
And with 5 copies, it would always go to any new members, to have
That's
somebody use it,
Right.
go do the survey and come
Little
back
board
with,
library.
put them all together so you know on a rotating basis of, who it is you're dealing with.
Well, that's a great idea.
Right next to Carver's book.
Right, right.
Yeah. Have we read that one yet? Of course I have. I'm
I'm sure Jay has.
All 3 of them.
Oh my God.
There's actually 3.
There's actually 3. Man.
I'm very impressed.
That's how he passes his time.
Right. No, but I like that it sort of, passed to the new board members, because that sort of allows for the continuation of a culture of strength-based
Yeah.
approaches to things.
Yeah, and understanding each other, because,
Mhm.
sometimes when folks come to you with something, at least this will help understand where the position they're coming from.
Yeah.
So. All right, sounds good. Appreciate that. So with that, we'll move through to the consent agenda, and I would accept a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second, is there any discussion?
I just want to comment, what a great inspiration to see these reports. especially to see the early education work you've been doing. So I'm very looking forward to that, so.
Mm-hmm.
I just tracked down, I have a list of 547 kids in Winooski, birth to 5.
Wow.
Just
Yeah,
got
some
it.
of them.
Took some doing to finally find it, but it came out of the Department of Health,
Mhm.
Vital Statistics.
I was gonna say, because they track all the immunizations now through the daycare providers for immunizations,
Yeah.
so,
So it's not a clean list because you don't have
It's
people
not.
who've moved in since the
Right.
birth, and you don't have change of address since birth.
right?
But it's a really good starting point, much better than we've had.
So it's birth through 5,
Yeah.
which leaves you 100 or so per.
Yep.
So,
Interesting.
and so in that, I don't know if it's appropriate to ask about the fix it with 5, like, what is that? I think that's an interesting thing that you're doing,
Mhm.
and that maybe people wanna know more about it.
Yeah. Well, we submitted the joint grant with the Stern Center, and the focus really was on what we're trying to do, because I said to Ed Wilkins, I said, what we really need to do is we could use some dollars to get people in here, find out who they are, where they are, get the contact information, start building the lists and building awareness around what the programming is, while bringing in providers at the same time, and start kind of matching. And from there, start to build on what's missing. Do we have enough, quality providers within the city? What are the challenges from parents' perspective in terms of financial, transportation, are there cultural barrier,
I would think it's more providers too, like, do we have enough providers in Winooski?
And
Qualified
quality.
providers.
And quality
And
providers.
if
if
not,
they-
why?
right?
What makes it challenging?
Yeah. And then, of course, it all dovetails into the Race to the Top award that
Yeah.
the state of Vermont got, and
That's awesome.
how is that gonna all play out, so.
So in February, we'll have Clem and George Cross in here, so we can espouse our views as to, what we think. You got in school or in home, do you do it in this, physically in this building, do you do it at home, do you, how do you train?
Well,
How do
and
they
that's
go
the
about
other
that? And
thing,
how do you support it when
reaching-
the grant dollars go away?
Reaching some of those kids that are home with their parents from that age group, a lot of it could be culture,
Yep.
could be any given reason.
Right.
And just really making sure they have all the information they need to for their
Mhm.
kids. So, I'm excited about it,
Yeah.
very.
All right.
I'm excited about it too.
Any other comments?
But, I have one thought about, students being persistently late, and then, the dovetail of flexible scheduling, especially for, especially with the research behind high school
I had that
thinking
question too.
and, I don't, just trying to dovetail it with meeting people where we are.
Mhm.
If there's any conversations around that, or,
Changing the start of high school and middle school
Mm,
time
yeah.
based on brain research, knowing that they require the sleeping
More
in the
sleep.
morning, but they're up later at night, looking into all of that before,
Yeah. Currently, I would tell you, there's not conversation going on about changing either one of those. We're dealing with
Mhm.
the kind of more of an immediate issue, approach to the issue. I think the longer-term solution is pointed straight at student-centered learning. So when you don't have blocks and you don't, and it's coming from the student, they might not need to be here at 8:15. They might be doing work at home, doing work at a job, meeting with somebody at the university. They might just come in later in the day. There might be evening opportunities. So I think, to me, that's the longer-term solution to that.
it is just long-term,
So,
long-term.
and the other part I was thinking about when I'm looking at this, because being that I have 4 kids in the group, is really looking at our traffic in this area and how that's really affecting sometimes on how quickly kids are getting to school and what is acceptable for students. I mean, why make them write a plan for something that's out of their control, basically? And so are you addressing that too when you do it? And things like that, I think, are
Yeah.
important to really look at when you're looking at truancy. Is it true truancy, or is it,
It's tardy versus truancy, yeah.
well, tardiness is,
Yeah.
if are they tardy because they have no choice to be tardy?
Right.
Or are they tardy because they want to be tardy?
Yeah.
Mm.
Because to me, that is a big thing for student self-esteem.
Yep.
Causation.
Yeah, I know, you know, anyone that comes out in Winooski at 10 of 8 knows how
Mhm.
congested the traffic is, and it could not, it's not even necessarily Winooski residents, it's
Well,
everybody in
particularly this time of
Burlington.
year when it's icy and snowy and it's, yeah, you gotta walk slower. Sometimes you can't walk on some of the sidewalks.
Yeah, no, you're dodging people on the street if you're driving here, because the
Mhm.
sidewalks aren't planned.
You can't
Or
get to
not
with
even
the
that,
ice.
it's
Yeah.
just too icy to walk
Yeah.
on.
Right, that's what I mean, you
Yeah.
can't, it's break your neck if you're walking on the sidewalk.
All right, anything else? Might have been a tad deep, but good discussion.
Sorry, I
That's
just-
okay, that's okay, I just, to note. So, all those in favor of accepting the consent agenda, aye?
Mhm,
Aye.
right.
Aye.
Opposed? No? Great. Then, under governance processes, governance style encouraging a diversity of views. Student report? Madania,
Hello.
welcome back.
Thank you. All right. So before I talk about what's going on right now, I'm just gonna go back about a month and talk about Aspirations Day. And so that was on December 17th. And basically what happened during the day is in the morning there was a motivational speaker named Jeff Yalden. He came in and with all the high schoolers, talked to all the high schoolers about life, about their choices, just, and growing up, what's going to happen to you. And it got through a lot of students. Some of them were driven to tears. And then after that, for the rest of the day, the students went to various workshops that they chose through a survey. And the workshops such as time management, military options, financial literacy, stuff like that. And in the workshops, they were taught about all the options that they have through high school and after high school, and how to handle their responsibilities appropriately. So I think it went pretty well from my view. I think students really liked the motivational speaker. And so, also, as you all know, there's a basketball game going on right now for the girls against Lake Region. And so my partner isn't here because she's in the game. And the next boys basketball game is this Saturday at Lake Region. And next week, the high schoolers start their midterms. They come in after 9:40, take their exams, and then go home at 1:05. So
That's next week?
next week.
There's a high school girls game tomorrow night too that was rescheduled from
Mhm.
Monday,
Middle school.
Monday's game.
Mhm.
They're all doing fantastic.
And I think that, you don't have to talk about it if you don't want, but the fact that it was brought up earlier around the tardy issue, that there was a community meeting
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, so that was Friday, last week Friday. And so all the high schoolers were called in into the PAC. Most of them were missing because it was a very cold day that day. But so Mr. Wheeler gave a presentation on tardiness and how he expects students to be on time. And then he talked about the new rule, and a lot of students didn't really like that rule.
What is the rule?
Yeah, what's the new?
Just that they have to be in school, in their class, before 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock is late. And if you are late, then you have to have a meeting with the principal, Ms. Green, and you have to come up with a plan. That plan is how you plan to be on time for the next classes. So.
Is that like a certain number of tardies when you have to have that meeting, or is that
No,
after the
just
first
your
meeting?
first tardy.
Is that an
Really?
unexcused tardy or an excused tardy?
I think unexcused. I think if you have an excuse, you're fine. And a lot of students don't really agree with the rule. they feel like they can't really control being late because it's winter. A lot of the students walk and it's very icy, and they feel like, see, with the meetings, they have to wait for their meeting, so they interrupt the class when their meeting's over. They have to go back to class, and you're interrupting the class in the middle of the class. So they feel like it's kind of contradictory because the plan was it's originally based to keep students in class for their learning. So,
This is gonna be an excellent opportunity
Yeah.
for students and adults.
To work together to
Yeah.
solve the
Yeah.
solution.
That's right.
It's a good.
So Dakota and LaDanya and I were talking about as we were preparing for this meeting and going over the agenda, and we got into that conversation about, okay, so if from a student perspective it's not working, what do you do next? So how do you go about that?
Very interesting.
And it may not be changing the time, because then it's, they're still gonna leave a little bit later and weather's gonna get involved. It may be more of the first class is not a class that's, educationally, academically based. Maybe it's something a little different, depending on, I don't know. I'm interested to see what you guys do to solve this dilemma, because
It's
it's an
fascinating
ongoing.
to hear both sides of the issue because in my eyes, they're both legitimate.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
it's like, okay,
Yeah.
this is going to be very
Most conflicts
interesting.
are legitimate.
Yeah.
Now it's just finding common ground that's gonna, yeah.
I'm all about being on time,
I wonder
but
about
on the
other
other hand, I
schools,
see.
how they deal with it. Be interesting research.
Quite a few other local high schools have no cut policy. So when you're tardy or you miss the entire class, you risk losing the class altogether.
And our students come straight into school and go right to their first class? There's not like a morning meeting or
Right.
an advisor?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, Sean,
Great case for
are those
collaboration.
Pardon?
best classes, or are those walking schools? Like, what are those schools that you've, because the only other walking
Most
school
of-
I know of is Burlington,
That
Yes.
what?
that the kids walk to school.
Yeah,
Bus.
most of, I'm talking about CVU, Essex,
Which all have buses.
Mansfield, right.
Right,
Yeah.
so if you're putting children on buses to get them to school, that's, right, they have no reason for being late.
Right.
But if they're responsible for
Well,
being
but a lot of
here-
those kids they may not be walking, but they're driving, so it's under their own control as well.
Unless their parents are driving them, and then it's the parents' control.
Yeah.
Well, it's a great opportunity for the students and administration to.
Yeah.
Collaboration and
To
student
continue to
voice.
plug
I'm
away.
definitely curious
I
to
am
see
too.
how this all sugars out.
That's wonderful.
It
should
may be
make,
something you
um,
need a committee on to really investigate and.
Can bring
find
that
the
back at some point in the
solutions.
future. We hope to obviously see you monthly, but
I'll try.
later in the spring would be good.
I suggest making lunch first period.
Breakfast, you mean?
No,
Here's
lunch.
Some people are driven by others.
Stand around the coffee machine talking, catch up. How was your night last night?
Yeah, you show up late to
Anything
lunch,
else?
you just eat lunch.
Anything
right?
else?
I don't think so.
Any other questions back?
No, I did hear the Jeff was an amazing inspirational
He
speaker,
was,
and
I
a lot
heard
of
him,
students
yeah,
got a lot out of that, so I thought that was awesome.
Great. This is my favorite part of the day. So.
The seniors actually were so touched and compelled that we want him for our graduation speaker.
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
well, that's awesome.
Really got
Now,
that for us.
one other thing I wanted to question was, you said you had a meeting about the tardiness, and you said the high school. What about the 6th through 8th? Were they involved in that meeting also?
No, I don't know.
Because they're gonna be held accountable also for tardiness, correct?
I would assume so. I don't know if they had a meeting or not. I should probably check. But I would assume that they're using the same rule, just to install that rule. I don't really know.
It's not as significant an issue in the middle school as it is in the high school.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, developmentally, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thanks for the report.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item 5, the global executive restraint, set policy 2. We have item here for a P card. I'd like to take a minute to explain.
Yeah, so we gave you a lot of documentation in there. The P card, when I had first arrived, I had asked about whether or not there was a school credit card, and there wasn't. And I've found that to be very useful in the past in terms of purchasing. In today's world, it's a way that business gets done. And so I had Rebecca look at the different options, and we've looked at your typical MasterCard, Visa, and everything, and what the Vermont school business managers recommend. And there are several schools, including some nearby, Franklin, Lamoille, that have this P or purchasing card. And so they, as a financial organization in the state, recommend it. And as you probably noted from the paperwork, it comes out of Illinois, and basically the same organization of school finance people in Illinois are the ones who kind of run it through the bank north of us. So the action that I'm asking for tonight is for the board to basically give the board president the ability to sign off on the resolution to apply for the card. Some things of note in the card that I would mention is that the members on it would be me and Rebecca, so we would be the primary folks on the card. It will be in the district office, and it will be, of course, tracked and well monitored. I would use it slowly to begin with, so that we use it well and get used to it and figure out where are the right places within the organization to use it. We don't want to get into, I don't want to encourage bad behavior with a credit card, which is, oh, I can just run down to the central office and buy something like that. We want to continue thoughtful purchasing processes that we have now, so that would be made clear to everybody. The max amount that we would ask to be able to put on the application would be $10,000.
Is that high enough?
It can be changed, but I thought that was a reasonable start.
What would you see the use? Or in the past, what have you seen?
I've seen it for travel expenses,
Conferences.
hotels, conferences, if there's flights involved, if there's any rental car, whatever that might be. Also, a lot of purchasing of supplies and books can be done online. All the staples purchasing, all that kind of stuff can be done with a P card.
Which is done now
Purchase
with
order.
Purchase order from
Yeah.
the school through the system to the
Right.
supplier
Yep.
on a time base response, normally?
Yeah.
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 Net 30 or whatever
Right.
on the purchase orders?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not necessarily, there'd be some efficiencies in time. I don't know that there'd be any efficiencies in money.
You get miles for using
I didn't see miles in the,
it? I mean, that's sort of a joke, but not really, because if there were some sort of, I mean, every credit card has some sort of kickback that
Right, right.
the consumer gets back, right? It'd be kind of
Right.
fun to raffle miles off to students or something like that. I
Mhm.
mean, if there was some sort of incentive that could be
yeah.
fed back into the students. that could
I
be
think
fun.
most of those are, like Discover and by companies, and we wanted to, after researching it, go with something that was more built for schools, and
Mhm.
it appears a bit safer.
Other thoughts?
I'm actually surprised you don't have one already, so. Seems like the way of the world is everything's a card.
The other
Alright.
piece that I wanted to mention is there's an option in there for cash advance and ATM, but there's also an option to deny that, and in the application, I would want to put that is not you're not allowed to do that on this car. So that in case if the car in fact was not in the possession of the right people, that is one of the things that could be really problematic.
I would think you'd be able to track the purchases much better on a monthly basis with something like this than the
Yeah.
constant and less paperwork,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
so it'd be more efficient.
Yeah, you
Okay.
could get a 2-day delay instead of a 20 or 30-day delay.
I move we accept the resolution to apply for the P card.
I second it.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. All right, section B, adoption of the 14-15 Winooski School District budget. So in front of you, there is a small sheet, small summary sheet. One of the notes that was different today than we had seen from our last meeting was the CLA listed in line 4
Mm-hmm.
is 101.11, and it was down at 98
Hmm.
point.
What a difference
Three.
that makes.
Great news.
That's a discount, right, for us?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good.
That's
good
good,
news.
right,
I'm
right.
not a mathematician.
Yeah, that's great
Right.
news.
Bigger
Well, you look at
CLA.
the bottom line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm looking at the bottom line and I'm thinking that's not great, so.
It
Well, it
was
was 12, wasn't it?
significally higher. It was at
So this is
actually
the
at 12%.
This is the state on top of that?
It still
5%.
accounts for the state.
Yes,
Was it a
yes.
nickel or was it 7 cents?
They were, they
7, you can see it at the top in
Okay,
parentheses.
okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the state, rather than the nickel last year, is getting adding a 7 cents to the top.
So then
this year.
our actual increase is a lot less.
The total that we're looking at because of the CLA increase is less in
Okay.
total. Right. With the state staying at the 7% that the 7 cents that we looked at before.
With only 100 coming out, or rather, that 100 not going in
I-
to the fund, is that right?
It's
The
with it going in.
carryover, or the balance of the FY13, what was the total? Do we have a final total? Because in the
No, we don't.
consent, it was the first 100K here into reducing some of the burden for this year. But it mentioned that whatever else would be transferred into the reserve account, so I didn't know if we had that final number.
No, we
When does
don't
that
have
come?
Probably a couple weeks. Bill's finishing up his auditing work now.
Okay, is there a chance that could be less than 100,000?
No.
No,
So if it's 120, 100 goes to this and 20 goes to the reserve fund?
back into the reserve.
Not with, is that without being voted on?
Well, that'll be on if you look at the warrant,
Warnings, yeah.
the warnings that we have here, that's in there.
Yeah. Yeah, this is really great. And so this means nothing comes out of the reserve for now.
Yeah, that 100, well, nothing comes out of the reserve for now, correct?
We're just not
Correct.
putting.
We are not putting the 100, we're putting anything over 100K into the reserve
Right.
would be the wish, and keeping 100K to help defer some of what we've got in here.
So what is the actual percentage increase the school district is looking for?
On the expense side, 6.27.
So it's still 6.27?
Right, the CLA increase helps with the funding coming back. That helps on the revenue side.
Right.
Oh, 101.
So that increases it on the revenue side.
It's really different.
Still.
It is, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah, I
I'm
just,
sorry,
I
I'm
just,
still not comfortable with a 6%.
well, I'm not
increase.
comfortable either. I will say this, and this is longer term, because I really feel this budget has, number one, I think we've had great conversations about it. From everything from educational equity
Mhm.
to things that are needed. I really appreciate the superintendent and the business manager's hard work. I think it shows. Longer term, and I was able to do a little bit of more analysis over the holidays, but we need to really be looking at our student numbers, because over the last 4 years, we've dropped 90 students in the school district. Some of that has been defrayed with the equalized pupil with the thought process of students of poverty and students of English language learner background, we get a little bit more of a weighted average, but we're losing students, over the last 4 years. And that's a classroom full of kids a year. Should that continue? And Bill Smith, he's been good for us. There have been other times that he's been off a little bit, so we need to kind of take that with a grain of salt and really watch the numbers every year. But we need to give some hard consideration if we're gonna continue to lose students like that of what we're doing both staffing wise and with our administrative load. I totally support our ELL position this year because as I say, even though we're shrinking, we're also transitioning to a different type of students. I mean, it was 8% last year, I believe was the number you gave us, Sean, over 8% of an increase. So the data is really clear that we need support in that area. By this,
For reference, a 8% increase on,
well, the percentage of English language learners in the school district, I believe, was 8%, wasn't it, Sean? May have been a little over 8%, I have it in here, but he provided that data. And I think historically, if you check that, that's probably holding true. Our population is changing even while it's shrinking. So this idea of that ELL support, I think, is a good idea. But by the same token, mainstream, what are we doing administratively and what are we doing with staff? We're starting to really shrink numbers to the point of, I think that needs to be a really serious, something that's looked at for next year's budget season, if it continues.
because the other side of the same discussion is though the entire population has dropped, the education that you're trying to deliver is to a very different group of kids that, because when you get to the equalized students and the ratio that says, you know, a student is not necessarily a student, it says that there is more burden to the school to educate certain classes or certain groups than others. And so I'm just looking at the equalized pupil as you go through time, and in that same 5-year span, though the total numbers actually have dropped by 90. If you look at the equalized pupil, it's actually up by, what year did you go back to, FY10?
FY10,
So you look over that time frame and you're up 80.
yeah.
You're up
Yep.
80 equalized students in 5 years, and you're down overall count by 90. So I would read that as a total load for if you think of it as a machine, right, the total load you're trying to handle is about the same, slightly less.
That, I guess
Right.
that argument
So-
can be made, and I would even submit this, that while that even may be true, and we're doing some of this now, I think we really need to look at where we're placing our resources and how they're being used.
Don't disagree with that piece, and I think the step
You
that
know.
we've taken this year is to help to break down the ELL and the special ed to have you know, to have a better focus or a better ability to
better
focus within
support.
each of
Yeah.
those, better
as well,
support.
Yep.
yeah.
Because in secondary education, I mean, 6-12, we're rapidly approaching 250 to 300 traditional students, and we have 2 full-blown administrators there. Outside of special education, ELL support, all of that. And I think it's a little top-heavy for that, in my eyes.
Now, in your collaboration or your consolidation study, I think we had seen at that point that we were right, pretty much for small districts.
We're very close, but you gotta remember, with that's before us adding this new ELL position, and that's,
But I have to say, well, we weren't close, we were smack dab in the middle of being
Yeah.
incredibly efficient with the way we were running.
we're average for districts of our size.
And that's
Right.
that's what we have to
And the
go with.
administrative.
Yeah, and the administrative thing,
Yeah.
that we were right on track.
And
Same
again,
or
that's
financial.
before this increase, and we don't know really what's gonna happen. Again, I'm trying to look forward here,
Yeah.
because you get a year or 2 years worth of data, you kinda, well, okay, maybe it's an anomaly or a blip. You start getting 3 and 4 years where you're consistently seeing something, you need to start to pay it, in my eyes, you need to start to pay attention to that, because as those trends keep going, you know, that's-
Well, and if you were to look back at the slide that I showed where it's, all grades K-12, the last 6 years, it's gone like this. Up and down with a range of about 50.
Yeah,
725 to 775, around in there. So the past 6 years has not been a good indicator
right.
in terms of trend analysis.
You're back to an average with a very high
Yeah.
standard deviation or high
Right.
range about
Our
it,
trend
so.
in a couple of years will be this,
Right.
with a range of 50, if that continues.
Well, that's hard to manage, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
something to think about.
were you able to
Yeah.
find out what the city's coming in?
I have not,
You have
yeah,
not.
no.
My
I
only
did
concern
talk to him
with
this
the
week.
budget increase is that it's a big increase, and the city had a huge increase last year. We were able to keep it low. So I'm gonna be the black and white person and say, how are we going to sell this budget to the property owners and people that are paying taxes, so that we're not coming back to this table to have to cut things that we already have? And not have it come back and bite us next year. And that's the only concern I have, you know? And we're answer to our citizens of Winooski,
Yeah.
so we need to be clear on, I agree with the increase, I agree with all the additions to our budget. I just wanna make sure we're clear on why it's a big increase compared to last year.
And I think our discussions show that how we were clear on it. I think that we all did a really great job of going, back and forth between wanting to make sure we are addressing the ends that our community wants of our kids, in addition to being financially frugal, and I think that we came to, it took us a while to get to that place where we landed. And I think that we can stand behind how we debated over that and kept it all, and then they get to be the final voice for that. But I think we did a great job of discussing it and keeping it, the discussion really simple on simple points too. So it doesn't seem like it should be too complicated to communicate what we felt like addressed both what our community wants from our educational system as well as our
Right.
tax base.
And if I go
Still
back
are.
to,
Yeah.
if I go back to the first, I think it was the first discussion we had, and I'm with you, you gotta think twice. Last year we were able to keep the increase to 1.7%, but we did that because we lost a bond. So we had some
Little bit of
latitude
wiggle
in
room.
there, and we didn't overblow it at the same time.
But we don't wanna come back to a
This-
situation where we have a bond.
Right, absolutely, and so that, I'll
We
get
kept
to that in
going.
a second, but one of the things that I do remember though is that we had half of the increase that we've got is for salaries and benefits. The other half was driven by special ed and tuition for our tech centers. Within that, the administrator adjustments that we're doing were handled, if I remember right, with other rearrangements of other things within the budget, not as increases.
And our increase in tech,
Right.
technology.
So, did
Yeah.
that pretty much cover the, so, the salaries and benefits, that's almost $500,000, right? 470 out of the 877. And then the special education cost, that's an increase, right? That's an increase from last year of
Yeah,
300.
Yeah, and remember,
Okay.
these are gonna change a little bit, because these don't include some of the ads, so those numbers aren't absolutely.
So these are
correct.
necessary increases regardless
Right.
of any
A
additions.
lot of the other
Yeah.
changes were done within the current
Okay.
budget structure that's underneath, and I
Just
think, to me,
making
that's,
sure.
well, I think that's the way I justified it in my own head.
Yeah.
Back to the, getting into a bond later on, I think we've done, Jay, you were part of the facilities group that did a pretty good piece of work that kind of went through the building with a fine tooth comb. And I think one of the biggest things we're staring at after the unit ventilators get done, which we fixed some of those last year based with some of the money we had to get, moving further on. But one of the bigger items we've got is, the boiler, I think, is gonna need some
Boilers
work
in the high
in
school.
6-7 years,
And
give or
the air
take.
handlers in the gym will be the other ones, and then the other stuff is smaller.
Right.
But we're not gonna be touching our reserve fund, right, for the budget this year. According to this is rolling over what we have, so we still have the reserve.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so.
Right, we're not digging into the reserve fund to do
Which I
any of
thought
this,
was
we're
good.
just not putting that 100,000 from FY13
Okay.
into the reserve fund initially. And I think that's gonna help defer some of the 7 cents that we're gonna work with, you know, into the state too, so.
You know, this, to me, this would not even be an issue, but again, we're facing huge increases at the state level. Which I'm finding really disheartening and really disappointing. They have their financial challenges as well, but to have back-to-back increases of 5 or 7 cents, it's in 10
Unprecedented.
years, almost 10 years I've been on this board, you know, it goes up a penny, 2 cents, you kinda, 3 cents, you kinda go, oh. When it goes up 5 and 7 cents, it's like, wow. I've never seen the state tax rate raise like that.
All over VPR today, a $70 million deficit they're looking at trying to figure out how to work with revenues on track.
But I mean, that's a
Tough.
huge portion of this, that's killing us. And I you know, hate to throw the state under the bus and our reps, but the truth is, they're a huge part of this, and I think that needs,
To be
you know,
addressed.
that needs to be addressed, and that also needs, the public needs to be very aware, cause they're just gonna look and they're gonna say, oh, all of this is coming from the school.
Yeah.
And that's not, simply
Right.
not
Not
the
true.
case.
But I think that's the communication that we have to make sure is clear and
Exactly. I
laid out,
agree.
laid out simply and clearly, and we'll have, again, Clem and George in here next month, so we can have that discussion after they've had a month under their belts,
Yep.
and they'll have some kind of an idea on where things are going, so. All right, any other discussion?
And I move we accept the budget, proposed budget.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those,
My knees are knocking, that's my other discussion.
yeah, all right, so all those in favor of adopting the 14-15 budget, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
yes, now the work of prepping the
We
communication.
appreciate your
um,
hard work, Sean.
yeah. Along those lines, at this point, I'd just like to interject, I had a follow-up from the last time, looking at the community dinner schedule in January or February.
right.
January was too close, February is in fact open, and we can have it if we wanna do that, and use it as a budget presentation session.
And
do
what
it.
day is that?
Eh,
Make sure-
Wednesday, I think it's
Yeah,
Wednesday.
yeah, it's a
Okay.
basketball game, almost guaranteed,
Ugh.
right? But,
My kids
I
go.
don't know if she even mentioned
Oh,
a date,
she
right?
didn't, but I have it in my calendar.
Okay.
18th is you said 18th?
I
Oh, okay.
don't know.
I know you
She
sent it
didn't
to
have a
me in
note, she didn't have a date
you
in
sent it to
her,
us in an
That's
email.
January 15th.
the 15th?
No,
Oh,
that was
February.
January,
Oh, okay.
so.
Isn't it the third week of the month? Third Wednesday of the month? Isn't that usually what they fall?
Yeah, usually.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's see.
because this year, it's because it's coming up next week, right? So.
Yeah, it would be
It'd
the
be the week
ninth, it
after.
would be the 19th, I can
It'd be the 19th.
confirm that.
Okay.
19th, anybody got a? You have all the, that's getting toward the end of basketball, but I think they're still active at that point, right?
Yeah, you can just go on the website and look real quick.
And or other, this, everything. Is it the 19th?
Yeah. So there's varsity boys basketball home versus, yeah, Enosburg on the 19th.
Can we have it here in the cafeteria?
I think the answer
Stop by the
is
dinner?
What time's the game?
You know what time's the game start?
5:30.
5:30 for JVs and
For
7 for
JV and
varsity.
6:30 for varsity.
Oh, okay.
Community dinner starts at 6?
I think typically it
Is
was
it 5:30?
there at 5, start at 5:30.
So it might work.
Now, I don't know that
Mm,
everybody
that's
needs
across
to
town.
necessarily, I mean, we can,
I'm not going to the basketball game, I'm happy to do the dinner.
I would actually go to the basketball game, as Mike probably would too, since he has a son that
We
plays.
used to have community dinners. I mean, I wonder if in this.
Well, the
school-
varsity game won't be until 6:30 or 7, right?
6:30,
Yeah.
probably 6:20.
Yeah.
It'd be
Yeah, it starts
more
early.
convenient for our community if we had it here. See where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
They're
then we
right
can be here
here, they have
early.
dinner, they go see the basketball game, and maybe people who don't usually go to the basketball game might walk down and go see it. We used to have them here.
And we could
you?
involve
Remember
more of
that?
the community members.
No,
I went to a couple community dinners when I first came to town, and they were happening here.
Mhm.
And then when we got the O'Brien Center, we moved them down there.
and except for approval of the space,
I know.
it shouldn't be a big deal.
Don't we do those approvals?
Yeah, you might wanna look at the calendar, make sure no one else has the
Right,
space.
right.
We'll make it work.
But I think that if we can, it'd be interesting to look, I think it would be convenient for the community if we looked into having it here.
I
And
agree.
if that's not an option, then let's certainly.
And because it's the end of the basketball season, it would
Yeah.
be great to get the people to the
Yeah.
basketball game. It
Right.
might be a time where they haven't seen one yet.
It's about bringing everyone
Right.
together,
Try to
right?
bring it on at 5,
Yeah,
eat, presentation 5:30 to 6:30-ish.
yeah,
Okay,
it'd be fun.
Yeah.
question and answer.
So 5 o'clock start?
I think a 5 o'clock start would
And
work.
Sean and Mike,
Yeah.
you're presenting the budget, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
then we can always leave it to
Okay.
We could even, it also would be good to put our heads together about the last community dinner we had so that we could address some of the concerns that were brought up and some
Yeah.
of the suggestions and make those connections and.
To try to start the meeting with that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so that we could really sort of have a round, and then possibly if we have people around, is ask, what else what other input would we like as well? Whether it's just a quick, somehow just being able, when we're all together, making sure we're communicating as broadly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the budget's a big item at that point.
It's
for
certainly
sure.
huge, yeah, but, everything around artwork, singing,
Oh, right. Yep.
Focus on learning.
Yeah.
focus on learning.
Okay, so, yeah, Sean just pointed to, we kind of segued a section ahead here, so.
So on
I
our
I move
thing.
we adopt the 2014-2015 budget warnings.
Oh, second.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of accepting the 14-15 budget warnings, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? And then the add that we wanted to do here then is, the additional item here is apparently we hadn't voted on moving the FY 12 fund balance of 406,671.38 to the reserve account. Though I had thought we had done that at some point, there was no record that we could find.
Okay.
have. So I move that we move that 100,000
406,671.38
into the budget.
to the reserve account.
Oh, into the reserve.
Into the
account.
reserve account. That's from FY 12, which is
I
one year
thought we
back.
did do that.
Same here,
Thought we
but
did
can't find a
too.
record of it.
Couldn't
so
find
Alright.
We'll now
Yeah,
have
I
a,
move.
we'll now have a record.
Second.
Moves into the
Okay,
budget.
all those in favor of moving 406,671.38 from FY 12 fund balance into the reserve account, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now we have a record. Thank you.
That's a big number.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Sitting
last
around.
big number.
yeah, we had, and that's, I mean, the reserve account is starting to get to a point where we'll have some of the money to do some of those other major items if
Mm-hmm.
we work through it. All right. Recent community activities by board members. Anything in the past month? Sean and I met with Deacon Mike O'Brien on a quick request. Mike O'Brien was invited to a mayor's meeting, and one of the items on their agenda was early childhood education at the state, and the mayors were gonna take a stance on it. Mike wanted to have a communication, so he wanted to understand where we were, so we had that discussion. He, wondered where we were at and what we were thinking. I think as a board, we are unanimous in our support of doing something somehow
We
to
do
get
agree.
to the early
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
early
Go for
education
it.
scenarios. So we had that discussion.
What, is he on the same page?
He is now, yeah.
Yes, no.
Yep. Well, he understands,
that's
he
that
understands
meeting.
certainly the need. He just wanted to make sure he was making a collaborative push with his voice, that it was.
Do they allow the public to go to those meetings, or is it a closed meeting?
For the mayor group, that one I'm not sure. I'm not sure. There's 8 mayors in the state, so it's not like it's a
That's
big,
it?
big meeting.
I
That's
just,
Yeah,
I
What?
think if it were like, you know,
Bunch of select boards and city managers?
everybody
or
else
what?
is select
Yeah.
boards and city managers. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, so the group is,
small.
small. Yeah, but I guess a couple of years ago, they got together and pushed for certain items, so,
Never doubt that a small group of people can make a great change.
Mhm.
absolutely, absolutely.
I think I
with a
missed
will.
the end of it, but.
Yeah. Any other, community activities to report out on? All right, budget informational meetings. Thank you for
Mhm.
keeping us from straying too far.
So that's gonna be the community dinner.
So we talked about the community dinner last time, and, February is in fact open. If we're gonna do it and do it here, it sounds like a good idea, gives a couple of options for dinner and a show. Would I entice someone into working the food end of the dinner this time, not to forget to include drinks and maybe a dessert,
Sean, don't you have somebody that can do that?
silverware?
What's that?
Good job, somebody can do that.
It really sounds like
Yeah,
a means to
we can
me.
do it.
It does.
How they do.
The ends eat well.
I'll be lucky, honestly, if I can even get out of my job at 5. I'm in a huge turnaround, so I can't take any more on my plate for stuff like that. I will do my best to be here. And I can bake.
I just thought I'd offer the
So-
fun.
I
Yeah,
have no problems bringing good food and baked goods.
yeah.
The dessert could be a bake sale for somebody raising money in the school.
Oh,
That's an
well,
excellent
Like
thing.
for,
Doc-
like student council or somebody who needs.
Yeah.
Penguin
prom.
plunge.
Project.
Penguin plunge, there you go, well, that'd be a great way to do it.
So how do
When is the
we,
plunge? Oh, sorry.
how do we throw that out as a,
When is the penguin plunge?
how do we throw that out as a fundraising opportunity?
I can handle that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Hey,
So I was curious about what other opportunities, the board felt like would be important ones for us to take advantage of. If there's other dates, other groups
Yep.
getting together.
Jim had talked about having the seniors get
Seniors.
together
Yeah.
first Tuesday of every month, and that being, in first Tuesday in February. That would certainly have us, pushing to get something final together. I'm assuming that's at the senior center,
So
which
that'd be the 7th,
is the 7th, okay.
the first Tuesday.
And somebody
Okay.
will be doing the newsletter, correct?
Yep.
Yep, I don't know.
And you'll be doing the town budget, is it BPR?
Penguin plunge is February the 8th?
Yes.
The what?
Well, isn't that past
Thing,
the fundraising?
TV
Oh,
thing.
right, as from the
Yeah.
candidate
Yep,
pools, yeah.
but that's also budget presentation.
Oh, yeah, right,
Yeah.
February 19th, yeah. It's all right,
That's right, we do have
find
the,
something else.
Wait, the
you
senior,
have the RETN presentation.
I'm sorry, I was
but
looking at January, yeah. So February, you said the first Tuesday? So it's
He
February
said the first
4th.
Tuesdays,
it's the
yeah.
4th, yeah.
2, 4, okay.
Maybe we do a little pamphlet to send out or have available for people that simplifies it.
Has the board ever done a budget flyer in the past?
Not that I'm aware of,
We have,
not since I've been on the board though.
we have,
Okay,
but it's been a long time.
yeah.
And,
That, and I'm gonna try at this dinner to bring some, voter registration things.
You're justice of the peace.
I'm justice of the
Okay.
peace, and
All
we'll
right,
see if
good.
we can't,
Get some people.
now that we know
registered.
when they can do it, I'm more than happy to.
Can you solicit some others in case you, for
Mm,
some reason, get a
As
little
Rob's-
overwhelmed and have 1 or 2 people here?
Well,
Besides yourself?
I think,
Or is it just filling out a
I
form?
believe, yeah, it's just
No
filling out a
swearing in.
form,
Okay.
and I can,
Okay.
it's not an issue.
Jen, I had you for the February newsletter?
But, I'm
No.
not doing the budget newsletter.
Oh, okay. Then we had Tori.
Guess
in
I'll
March.
pass that.
I'm on that one, aren't I?
I'll do
I
it
had
in
you in
March.
March.
Oh, good, I'll do
Yes.
March.
No,
No.
no, I'm not doing the budget.
Well, generally, February and March
Let's
are
have
both budget ones. one's kind of a
There you go.
precursor.
To write
and-
about
Mike
it?
and Jay,
Because-
you got to
Second
do
one
them.
comes
Because
out
the
right
March,
before.
the March one comes out, or is the
Like
one newsletter comes
the
out
weekend
early.
before or something,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Right.
Good, you can do March, I'm doing
I-
February.
no.
Right, so I'll do the February one then.
Yeah, and I was
Get that
planning on
laid out.
doing my
Your
piece in the
piece.
newsletter on the budget too,
Okay,
For
so I
March
can
or
stick with the February
for
one. I
February,
can talk about it.
because it's
Yeah.
due.
I'm not gonna talk details
next
about it, I'll let him do
Tuesday, I
that.
think.
Yeah.
If I do it, it's gonna be the happy-go-lucky, spend money type.
What-
I'm not a good writer.
If it helps and makes you more comfortable, board members, when you do things with the budget, I like allowing the administration to do the number crunching part of it. Of, this is the percentage, this is what our CLA is, this is da-da-da-da-da-da. And board members focus on educationally, this is what we're doing
Then I
in
can
the
do the
budget.
Februaries.
But aren't I
can
slated
do
to do
that.
it?
I
Does
had,
it matter either
Jen
way?
for February and Tori for March.
March, okay, great.
So I'll do the February one. I can do
Thank
that if Sean gives me his little tidbit first.
Yeah,
So I can feed off of that
Mhm.
in the happy-go-lucky.
So that's
you'll be
coming
right.
up due pretty soon for you guys, isn't it?
Keep,
next
Don't
week.
put that in your notes.
Okay, good, 'cause okay.
What's that?
The newsletter's due,
Oh,
yeah, I think
Usually-
it's the 14th, maybe.
And then
Mhm.
the March one will be due very, very soon after, so.
yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that one
it's
coming
due
out
on the
before
10th.
town
Yeah.
meeting day.
February 10th, I already got it in my calendar.
Have you written anything?
I wrote one.
Yeah, it was great, well
Yeah.
done.
It was
I have
good.
really not had to write one in a while because the
It's-
last time I was supposed to,
I
Tori
did
did
it,
it.
yeah.
I know
Alright.
I'm skating through these.
Any other places or events?
Yeah.
I think this is stretching
I
from
mean,
where
I
we
can
have
take
been the
flyers,
last
we
couple
can
of
put
years.
flyers out in the community.
Yeah.
So if we can get a flyer made, I have no problems walking on the weekend,
Okay.
dropping them at stores
Yeah, I can
and
do the same.
places just to get them out there.
Probably getting some down at the city,
Yep.
so when people come in to pay tax
Maybe
bills,
somebody go to
water
the city
bills,
meeting in February
parking
and
tickets or whatever, they can pick one up.
Okay.
doesn't the city have an open discussion where we could put a little bit of the school budget in there too? Or no,
Not the council,
not the city
no,
council?
generally no.
Okay.
If we do a
Just
budget
checking.
flyer, we could put some in the churches, right? I mean,
Yep.
wouldn't they be willing to?
If they want them, yep. All the little convenience stores and,
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be doing, I guess, maybe one of the first opportunities, so at the PAX meeting, I think I mentioned, and that's January 23rd. And we usually start with dinner, and then I do about 10 or 15 minutes with everybody before they break into subcommittee, so I'll kind of do a condensed version, because there's 20 parents usually. there.
when is that meeting?
January 23rd.
I'm asking, Rebecca usually watches the kids.
Oh, right.
I think too, like in the past, when new candidates have been going out to campaign, they've also campaigned for the budget. So if you guys are running for school board, you can add that pamphlet to your pamphlets.
Flyer
And that way you
distribution.
can go, if you go door to door, you can drop them on the doors. It's another way of getting it out there.
Okay. So I think I've heard the PAX on the 23rd, seniors on February 4th, a community dinner on the 18th, and our normal night before town meeting, that Monday night. That's all we had talked about. Anything else?
February 19th, yeah.
It was the 19th?
Yeah, that's yeah. And then March 3rd.
March 3.
Well, are we gonna do a flyer?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't I work on putting a draft together? Who should I send a draft to?
Our
I
chair.
would say,
Yeah, sounds like a good job for the chair.
yeah, send
That's
it
it,
to me
that
and
falls on him.
I'll pass it around for input.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to look at it. If you like.
All right,
Are we running?
anything else there?
I think I'm running. Yeah.
All right, any items for the agenda next time? Like I said, we've got, Clem and George coming in, so I sent them a list of 8 or 10 things that I think we had rattled off in a very quick
Did you s-
succession.
Did you send those to us also?
If I didn't, I'll go,
Yes.
I thought I
You
had
did.
copied you, I don't know if you want me to. If anything else comes up, I'd really like to have these guys have a chance to understand the topic of the discussion and, you know, get a chance to ponder their points.
Are they gonna be doing any community forums also, do you know?
Well, we haven't asked them first. Normally they don't. I think we've seen them, I mean, George has come to.
Yeah, no, well,
our-
they're not up for election in March, so.
Right, but George has come to the school,
Yep.
the meetings we've had here on the school budget the
Yep.
night before
Yep.
town meeting day, so,
And Clem will be there as well.
yeah.
Not next month, Mike, but sometime in the future, I have some thoughts for some Golden Apple Awards. We haven't done one in a very long time.
A golden apple
Mhm.
award.
You've been,
Don't
it may,
know that I-
you've been here when we've done them. You
Nope.
haven't either?
Well,
You haven't-
Well, it's
I think it
basi-
was the year before I came on that,
It's
the last
basically
one was
a
done.
way that the board can thank members of the community who have done something for the school.
Oh,
And
Okay.
they get a little brass golden
above and
apple
beyond.
and, you know, not next month, but I think down the road, I think it's a great thing for us to
Mhm.
do. Maybe when,
Yeah.
after budget gets passed and things clear out and calm down a little bit, I have a few people that maybe we could submit for that if the board is up for that.
I think
Sounds
that's a great
great.
idea.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
all right, so you have, like nominations and talk about
Yes.
the,
Yeah, and
Right.
historically, you know, any board member, if you have somebody you feel has really done something,
You
you
bring
know,
it.
for the district, it's generally for volunteers, not for staff.
Yeah.
But they get a Sandy orders, it's a little golden brass
Golden
apple
apple,
that they
that's great.
get.
That's
And we
awesome.
basically thank them and, you know, but there are some people out there that I think have done some things.
we
Great.
definitely have people that are
We have a great
working hard.
community.
Yeah, we do.
Yep. Okay, anything else? Any other items? All right, a couple of discussion topics, under board self-evaluation here. Mid-year board progress update is one of the items that we've had in there. I think we've talked the last 2 months about, how we're doing following our, path and the policy governance, model. So I think we've had some of that discussion. I didn't know if there were any other thoughts.
And I think the policy governance piece has been extremely challenging for me the last month with the budget process.
And so, yeah, keeping us on track to
I think
focusing
that
on ends
it's
still,
when
or
you're used to being part of a board,
staying out of the details?
yes, and staying out of the details of stuff like that, and feeling like you just don't know and you don't have the answers. I think that's where I've struggled. I think it's been good conversation, but I think that's a lot, you know, when you move forward, that's one of the things I think I struggle with, is we don't know all the details, which is good. We don't need to know all the details, but when it comes to the money part, and that's something that's common, you know, the finances, and that's been the challenging for me. I
And
think
being able
for
to
a
explain
good-
it?
Yeah,
to
I
others.
think as a board, we've done a good job staying within the policy governance process with it, but I think it's challenging to stay in that process.
Is it challenging to stay in the process for you because we don't get down into the how do we actually spend the money rather than the
broad-
outcomes that we get from it and the focus there? That I can understand.
Yeah.
Certainly can understand that. It has been a very different discussion, I agree with you, this year than what I had seen in the first two. Definitely a different level of discussion. But for me, the thing I've been trying to focus on through this process is, to me, it doesn't matter if we've got 2 English teachers and, you know, 2 math teachers or 3 math teachers. It is, what are we looking at for the outcomes of the whole thing rather than how it's structured within, and keeping it within a range of the bottom line, I think, is the focus that I've been trying to keep, rather than, you know, how are we actually utilizing this? So, I am not an educator. I am not an administrator for a school. I'm hoping we're asking the right questions to squeeze to the right level of making sure that what is coming out is gonna give the results in the ends, ultimately, that we want.
And that's exactly it right there.
Yeah.
Are we asking the right questions? Are we making sure our high level of thinking is being maintained throughout?
Mhm.
Because we are responsible to our citizens.
Absolutely. We've gotta know
and our
what it is.
students.
No, my thoughts are probably even more rudimentary than that. I feel that the most of the budget are means,
Mhm.
and we have policies as far as dealing with all of those, and, you know, the superintendent needs to stay within those guidelines, and that's a binary question for me, yes or no.
Yep.
So,
That breaks it all the way down into its simplest of terms.
Yep.
That is getting right to the heart of it, and then it becomes outcomes.
exactly,
Right.
yeah, and I think
Still-
that's what'll be challenging. Is once we start to, because very soon here, I would hope, we would start really looking at saying, okay, you know, we now have our ends, so we're gonna get a report, and then that's when the really interesting conversations are gonna happen that will pull in a lot of different things.
Mhm. Yeah, like, what are we gonna look at
Right,
for
exactly.
outcomes?
Yep.
And which ones and where are they? And, yeah, those discussions will definitely start as we move over the, you know,
Well,
next.
and it's as simple as the tardiness situation, you know, like, that's not up for us to decide what's acceptable for helping that situation,
Mhm.
but yet,
It would have come to
As a-
us before.
right,
Yes.
exactly.
We would have been
Well,
sitting here
but
talking
then-
about
And so it's
this.
hard because you really want to make sure your students are getting
Yeah.
all of those views. And so is it our job to make sure those views are being seen, or is it not? And those are like the
Am I
slippery
a
slopes
parent or am I
of
a
policy
board member?
governance. Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And I try to stay back as a board member, and I'm looking at the whole community. So, but still, you know, which is why under the consent agenda, we have room for discussion, which is why I brought it up there, so.
Well, and what's interesting about that whole tardy thing, and this just kinda struck me, but if you were to look at our ends, is a person who's consistently late really college and career ready?
They could
Would
be.
would a job accept you being late on a regular basis? Well,
Maybe they would have
and is-
chosen
and
a
is that
job
how
that they-
what the superintendent
Right.
would measure, use as a measure?
So-
I don't know that.
They
But-
maybe just
but isn't
challenge
a-
that conversation by saying, a job is an ends. You have an ends result, and based on what position you have, as long as your ends are getting meet, the person's doing their job.
And maybe
right?
that student would know that they don't like getting up early in the morning, they would choose a job accordingly.
Yep, well,
Exactly, and if their grades are good, but their lateness is not, debilitating their grades,
see, this is.
should they be, so that's what I'm saying,
Very
it's the
interesting.
ends
Oh, yeah. Well,
that we're looking at.
Yep.
And and I will always reiterate, what's fair for one is not fair for all, and each child needs to be looked at as an individual, and sometimes our guidelines for that are too broad. And that's why I had to say something about the tardiness, because that is a good example of that.
all right. Any other discussion on our, no, that's, you
I
know,
love the
we're-
simplicity of it. I like
I
that,
do.
I think that it just cuts out so much stuff that you really get to focus on what I feel is important in terms of governing. And it's really relearning, or reshaping an idea of what governing really is. And I think that the practice has made these board meetings so enjoyable and quick. They used to go on for hours, the things that would come. And again, like you said, we're not teachers, we're not teachers, we're not administrators, and we hire the folks to do that work. And so it's just the simplicity of it. And I think there's always going to be the cost and benefit of simplicity, but I really love the conversations that we've been getting into.
And I think
It's
that's
been
the one thing
wonderful.
as a board, I think I would like to see more is for us just to be able to express the concerns we have, even if it's a means level, and to figure out if it's a means level, or is it something that's in the ends, and how we want to make sure that all our students are being, you know, don't have the word escaping me, that, you know what I mean? I like the simplicity, love it. But is it too simplistic? Is it too simple? Are we missing something? I guess
Yeah.
those are would be my questions.
There are the thoughts, because I think that the policies, you know, our run through all the policies of making sure that everything that mattered is there. We have something to fall back. It's not like we're just sitting here being simple, not talking about it. It's just that when something comes before us, it's like, well, what have we said about that?
Mhm.
We have a record of what we've already determined is an important way to run an organization.
So then our organization's running well, because we have nothing brought before us, really, then.
And then when those reports, and we have a schedule for when it's gonna come before us to do progress monitoring, you know, where
Right.
we don't have to sit around and, in some ways, worry about it because we have spoken to it.
Yeah, I think the thing,
there's
I think
trust
the
in the
thing you're
system.
struggling with most is that we are so early right now.
Mhm.
We've had 2 monitoring reports.
Right, that's true. It's-
And
yeah,
arguably, the 2
yeah.
monitoring reports we've had have been so that Sean can figure out, A, how to write them.
Right.
We can
Right.
figure out how to read them. Do they come where we need them to be?
Right.
We're gonna get into some of the monitoring reports as we move forward here that are gonna have a little bit more meat into them.
Mhm.
When we get into the ends and the monitoring reports there, those are gonna be, like Jay was saying, I think those are gonna be the discussions that are gonna be very interesting. Because then we're gonna have to think, is this what we really asked for?
Is this
Does this get to the heart of what it was we wanted to
for the
have
students?
out of this district for the money we're putting in?
Right.
And I only have
And-
one request. I have no problem
Those haven't come yet.
axing and smashing fairly quickly through some of these action items that basically just require board action. But when it comes to things like our ends, we can't rush that.
Mhm.
I think we need to have a very, and if it takes more than one meeting, it takes more than one. If we need to clear an agenda, then we clear an agenda. I guess that's how
Or
my,
more
I think
likely-
it's important enough that,
Yeah, I think more likely what's gonna happen is we're gonna get the report from Sean. We'll ask clarifying questions. We'll have set some time potentially to say, we're not gonna adopt this one, or approve this one, accept this one tonight. We need to go off and do some homework to go figure out if it is in fact, and can you do this, and can you do that?
And we
then
discussed
go look
that
at it
a
and
couple
come
board
back.
meetings ago, of
Yeah.
how we were
Right.
gonna handle that, yeah, absolutely. And with
And
all the
that's
minutia
where-
gone, and it being so simplistic, it gives us time to
And when
really
we-
talk about the things that are most important, that are actually closer to the kids and what we wanna see, the education we wanna see them
And
walking
and
away
it
with.
is so new.
Yes.
I mean, we
Yeah.
are,
But I think as you turn the crank one more
Yeah.
time and get into that next level of discussion, the second time around, I think that's when you're gonna start getting into what is this governance process all about? Do we accept the fact that, we had 87 out of 88 bodies in the class, so the students are engaged? Is that a good measure of student engagement, having a body in a chair, right? Probably, right, but that's the level of discussion, what is it gonna take? So, I think we're gonna get into that discussion, I think what we're seeing
Okay.
right now is just getting to that point. And the
I'm not
budget-
discouraged. It's a discussion
Yeah.
we're having about how we're feeling.
Yep.
So that's why I bring
Yep,
it, yeah.
no, that's good.
Good.
Can't imagine
Um,
I'm the only one.
No. Item B in here, though, review the annual report. I was gonna write something for us to review tonight for putting into the annual report. I got a, president's, letter at the front. So I will get that done over the weekend, and I will send it blind to you guys for feedback, just to make sure everybody has at least seen it before it goes into the annual report. So I'll get that letter out. I've got it outlined but not written at this point. And then the only other thing we had here is the individual assessment of the current meeting, and we can talk about, can do that. Upcoming meeting dates, we've got a joint retreat on Saturday, the 25th. That has been paired to 8 to 1.
Excellent.
This is,
I can be a student and say, why 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning?
Yeah, really.
Don't be tardy, Jen.
Seriously.
Don't be tardy.
You're gonna have a meeting.
Yeah,
So
go
just
there,
don't tell me
yeah.
if there's a coffee time in that time, because the only time I'm tardy for retreats is if I know that it's a coffee hour, coffee half hour first.
Prompt start at 8.
All right.
And
Well,
where
Bring
is-
I
bring your
where
own
is-
coffee.
And
Can we
where-
make it here in Winooski, right
And
over
where
here?
is this?
We don't,
So-
We still don't know.
Winooski.
Lindsay and Hal are,
How about
Taking care of
8:30 to 1?
To 1:30.
and we've got a moderator,
How about one
talked a
to
little
four?
about the format and
Good.
basically being, some of the stuff that the student-centered learning and making sure that the boards are having a common language to go talk about what it is that is going on now.
Great.
So it is a common language
I'm gonna
across
be,
both boards.
I'm gonna be late for that one. I got class that morning.
Okay.
On a Saturday?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I actually have
Oh.
work scheduled that day, so it's not working out real well for me either, so I gotta see what I can do.
Yeah. Yeah, my class starts at 9, and I could probably be at the meeting by 10 or 10:30.
Okay. All right, I know we have some individual discussions as we go
See?
through the morning, so I think what you're gonna
Tardiness,
be,
There's reasons for
I
From
it.
think
what
I
I
have a class
understand-
too. I'll be there at like 8:39.
from what I understand of the agenda, you'll be able to walk in and then get in
Okay.
somewhere to a discussion
I
that,
could justify
you know,
it too.
the whole
since I
thing would
work
work.
from home.
Yeah, that'd be great.
The other one, the next one is our next board meeting, February 12th, 6:30 as always, and we have the legislative discussion at that point, so.
Which I'm excited about.
I will give you the assessments here in a moment. I would at this point accept, is there any other discussion?
Are we moving into executive
Yes.
session?
This will be relatively on the brief end at this point, because the negotiation session we had planned, due to the ice and potential for bad weather, got a bit preempted, but we still wanna get some information, so. I would, if there's no other discussion, I would accept a motion to move into executive session.
So
So-
moved.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. We are in executive session at this point.